Welcome to AM Reviews. I'm Sal and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hello, everyone.
And before we get into it, fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead. And today we're going to review Hereditary. So this is the latest horror mystery movie, and the description is, when the matriarch of the Graham family passes away, her daughter's family begins to unravel cryptic and terrifying secrets about their ancestry. So, Touly, what you think about this movie?
In terms of being a horror flick, it was definitely one of the better ones that I've seen, to be honest, in recent years. I liked a lot of the aspects that were implemented into this film in terms of the cinematography, the acting, the sounds that were being used. But I think the one thing that I appreciated the most out of this film was it didn't rely on cheap tactics to get you as an audience to feel tension. And by that, I mean things like jump scares. I'm not a big fan of horror flicks when they rely too much on jump scares. I'm not going to say that they shouldn't use it, but when they minimize it, I think it's better because then they rely more on the mood of the scene or the characters or whatever to bring that sense of tension to you as an audience. So to me, I appreciate that the most because I was always expecting something to come off the screen or whatever, get me to react to it. But yeah, the story or the movie did a really good job of just presenting you with stuff and leaving you with some type of expectations that something's going to pop up, but it never did. And to me, I always valued that a bit more than the jump scare itself because it's the build-up of suspense that gets me to appreciate horror films. It's not so much of what's revealed because normally when you come to a revelation of why things are the way they are or why things happened, it's not too unique. Normally the patterns are the same from like movie to movie. It's just the way they handle it. But to me, I think this movie did a really great job in building suspense and not relying on cheap tactics to get the audience to react the way they wanted it to.
Yeah, you totally nailed it. I agree with you. I like the cinematography. I liked how they did not use too much jump scares. I think we were talking and I think we can only pinpoint one or two jump scares in the whole movie. That was excellent. Same thing with, like you said, I don't like movies just rely on that tactic. It's overused. I wish there would have been ways to make movies penalize them if they keep using a lot of them. But for me, it's like, you don't need them. If you have a good story, you don't need jump scares. You don't even need a monster, to tell you the truth, in a horror movie. You just need the audience have that feel that there's something wrong and it could happen to them or it might be happening. I also like the way they used the miniatures. They zoomed in and zoomed out so you couldn't really tell what was a miniature, what was a real structure. Let's talk about the opening. There's the obituary of the grandmother and it goes right into a shot of the exterior of a house, zooms in, becomes a miniature, keeps zooming back in, and it's one of the rooms, and now it's the actual room of the male boy. That I think was so well done. I kind of like, I was happy about that shot. And there's no line, there's no audio, it's just a shot itself. It's a continuous shot. There's no cuts that you can see, there's no shifts or anything. It's just a zoom in and it goes from actual shot of a house, exterior of a house, miniature, actual shot of a room, and it's so well done. I can't say enough about this shot. The whole story, how I went into it, seeing that, everything that's happening could be either attributed to a medical condition, either these people are crazy or there is something going on here. And basically that's how I wanted to see it. So that was my kind of view. But at the same time, that whole 3/4 of a movie to me was too stretched out and there was a bunch of gaps in the movie that were not necessary. I think we were talking about this, if they could have just taken those out. I know what they were going for. They wanted to build that tension and feel uneasy feel of the family dynamic. But at the same time, you could achieve that with lesser images of them just not doing anything, interacting with each other. Let's talk about the characters, each character by themselves. Let's start with the mother. She's an artist who basically is working on miniatures. And that's basically her thing that she does. That's her hobby or her job. The father, he works in an office. He's detached from the family because he's away from home. The son, he's a teenager who's a teenager. He does his own thing. We see him playing with the guitar, but we also see him being detached from the family and using drugs. That's his escape. Everybody has an escape in the family. The younger daughter, her name is Charlie. We see her being the awkward character with a big sweater, wearing it all the time, and just being off in the corner by herself, drawing or either making what I would call figures by using recycled stuff. So technically kind of mirroring the mother's artistic talent. Then the character we didn't see, but we kind of get hints at is the grandmother. She was what the mother described as a insane woman who was crazy, and she was just off her mind. So Touly, what did you notice about the characters that stood out for you?
Like you pointed out, the way the movie presented this family, they definitely have some drama between them. Like they got along, but not like it felt kind of forced. And like you said, each of these individuals had their way of escaping the reality that they were living in. I understood why the movie spent so much time on this, because it wanted you to feel attached to each of these characters so that when something did happen to them later down the road, you felt some type of connection or emotion to either their loss or whatever. So I understand that and I appreciated that, but like you said, the movie did drag a little bit too much because of this. And aside from the one major thing that happened to one of the family members in the first half, or even like the first like 45 minutes of the film, because the movie was about a little over 2 hours long. Other than that, like to me, it felt very slow paced. A lot of the things that to me that really mattered in terms of getting down to why things were happening to the family or to like the mother, those things weren't really touched upon until the second half of the film. But then at that time, I felt like the movie was in a rush. I felt that things that should have been on screen more so than others didn't get the attention that it should have. But again, I guess the movie was trying to present this family in such a light that it wanted you as the audience to feel for what they were going through, particularly the mother. I personally think they could have spent less time in achieving this and still get the same impact.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way. There were some scenes that I actually felt I was in the room with them, and it made me feel, as an audience, really awkward. Like being like, okay, I'm here. Why isn't anybody interacting with each other? But at the same time, like, if you would have shortened the time, you could have gotten the point across. You could have seen that every time the whole family was at their house, which to me, it just basically was a big miniature. It was like this fabricated household that it was an empty shell. People just lived in it, but they didn't interact. The son was in his room. The mother was in her office. The father was probably downstairs in the only chair that we see him sitting down reading his newspaper. There's so much space in the house, but he just decided to sit in that chair, and the daughters either in her room or in her treehouse. They're not really what you would call a functioning family, and that's what I thought the movie was going for. They were a family that were just living together. To me, it seemed like they were just roommates. Each one had their little problems that we kind of saw them. Daughter didn't get along in school, maybe, because there were features. The son, he had this awkward thing that he liked a girl. But outside the house, once they're inside the house, there's no family dynamic going on. Now, you said you allured to the incident that happened, but like we already said, there's spoilers here, and if people didn't take that warning, we're gonna talk about it. So Touly, what was this whole mystery thing that you were talking about that happened in the middle of the movie, or 40 minutes into the movie?
Yeah, so it involved the daughter. She was forced, or the mother insisted the son to take his sister along with him because he was going to this party. While they were at this party, she consumed a cake, which apparently had nuts in them. And so apparently she's allergic to nuts. And this was alluded to towards the beginning of the film too, because when she was eating like a bar of chocolate, her parents asked her if there was nuts in this chocolate bar. And she's like, no. So you already got the idea that she was allergic to nuts. Flash forward to the party, the son wanted to go and hang out with his friends. And so he left his sister alone, with the group of people downstairs. And he's like, there's some cake, go get some cake. And she consumed it, and it had nuts in it. So she had her allergic reaction. The son panics, tries to take her to a hospital. You see him driving in a panic state. She eventually succumbs to not being able to breathe, or she's having difficulty breathing. So she opens up the window, sticks her head outside, to get some air. While doing so, the son, while driving, sees a dead animal carcass on the road. And because of this, he swerved to the side, and it was perfect timing. There was a pole on the side, and the daughter's head gets decapitated. Yeah, it to me, it surprised me a lot in terms of storytelling, because
yes,
with the way this character was, the daughter that is, to me, I thought she was going to be the one who's going to play a huge role in terms of being the one who's going to be possessed and it's going to be haunting or causing all these things to the family throughout the movie. But yeah, she got killed off right there. A part of me, again, I was surprised at this, but I also liked it because it's a very atypical move that is being done here. So for it to be different and for it to be pulled off in this fashion, I thought it was great. But yeah, that was pretty much what I was alluding to earlier.
To me, that was one of the scenes that kind of like, I want to say that it was one of my favorite scenes. Not because of the decapitation, but just because you didn't expect it. And it threw me off because like the same way you said, I thought Charlie, the girl, was going to be basically not the main character, but one of the important roles that was going to be around the movie. Watching her get decapitated just threw me off. And I was like, basically, I was in the same state as the brother. You know, he's like shocked. He drove home, didn't say anything, parked the car, went to bed, and you know, just he was still shocked. Then fast forward, the mother wakes up, she finds out that, you know, what happened. And here's the thing, for a good 5 minutes, I wasn't sure if the kid was trying to hide it or the family knew about it. But later down the line, I want to assume that he did say, Mom, guess what? I did this. And the mother, as a mother, to protect him, said, it's okay, honey. Even though she maybe wanted to blame him for what happened, but she just said, it's okay. I'm your mother and I'll take the responsibility for this. You don't need to worry about it. And this whole dynamic just goes around. Is like the son feels bad because of what he did. The mother wants to blame the son, but she can't because she's a mother. And there's this dynamic, and the father is the guy in the middle. You know, like he's like looking at each other and like looking back and forth and saying like, okay, come on, like let's move on. There's a scene. It's at the table. They're eating dinner, and that's when I guess the son looks at the mom and the mom's looking at the son, and they start bickering and they start screaming at each other and saying like, come on, why don't you say what you feel? So the mom says like, yeah, I blame you for your sister's death, but guess what, she's dead, let it go. The son basically comes back to her and says, well, she didn't want to go, you forced her, so you kind of killed her. So it's basically like they're throwing who's responsible for the daughter's death back to each other. Like, well, you did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. And the father's just sitting there like just seeing this happen. That's another reason why I feel that this whole movie was about the family dynamic. Also, one of my favorite scenes that this has happened almost at the beginning. The mother went to a support group meeting, and it was people there, you know, talking about moral support who had recently lost family members. The way she spoke, I think this is the best scene in the movie of this character. She's there trying to basically talk to these people, telling them my mother died and I can't get her out of my mind. I want to move on. But instead of doing that in a sense, because everybody else is like grieving, saying like, my loved one, I can't be without them because they were special to me. She's actually blaming the dead mother for things that is still lingering around her. She's blaming her for being a bad mother, for being crazy, for being this. Still saying, because of her, I feel so much pressure on me because I'm a mother now, and you know, I have to protect my son, I have to protect my daughter, and then I have to take care of my husband. And it's like she's trying to defend herself from somebody who's dead. So this points again to the whole concept of this character who we don't know who's dead. We don't see any videos or anything about her, still have a grasp on this character that won't let her live, and the way she's trying to defend herself from somebody who's dead. It made me feel like, okay, there's so much feeling in here for this character if she could just like bring it out. But overall, like, I didn't think they put too much emphasis on the dead grandmother. So I was like, oh, I really wanted to see more of that. And I guess I kind of understand why they didn't do it for, you know, what happened in the ending. But yeah, those scenes were a few of my favorite scenes. Touly, what was one of your favorite scenes or one of the bad scenes that you didn't like about this movie?
I'm not so sure if it's like a favorite scene or whatever, but it's more like a theme that they played upon. So it started off when Charlie, the daughter, was at school and they showed the bird, you know, smacking into the window, and she later goes outside, trims the head off. To me, when I saw this, I thought it was just her being, you know, her weird self. And before I continue here, I just want to give kudos to Millie Shapiro. She did a fantastic job at playing this daughter role. I was just creeped out by this character, so kudos to her. But anyway, when she trimmed off the bird's head, again, I was just thinking, this is just who she is. She's just this socially awkward individual who's into weird things. But then that actually played into a lot of the stuff that happened down the road. You could see that as a foreshadow to her getting decapitated. That's one aspect of it. But then they also kept on returning to that theme when the mother was working on the miniature houses and stuff, there's the shot of the son lying on his bed without his head, like as a miniature. So when I saw that, I thought, oh shoot, the son also is going to lose his head. But then that didn't happen though. But if you were to look at it at overall in terms of the grand scheme of what was going to happen at the end, it played into particularly the females, the female members of the family. There were like headless bodies at the end, and it was of the only the female family members of the household. And of course, this played into what the mother discovered in the grandmother's stash of belonging, where she came across this book. She turns to a page in this book and saw this demon there by the name of Paimon, and the way that he was going to get resurrected into the world. And there's a picture of this demon with 3 heads. He was grasping onto 3 heads. When I put everything together in terms of of Charlie trimming the head off and how this played a role into the grand scheme of bringing this demon into the world here, I like how everything connected in that fashion. So it wasn't so much of my favorite scene, it was more about playing on this theme and how everything connected at the end like that. But in terms of what I kind of questioned about the film, one thing was how they represented this demon in the form of a light. Maybe I'm not aware of what this light is supposed to mean. Maybe in certain cultures or folklore, maybe light is supposed to represent evil or demonic. But to me, whenever I associate something with light, I'm thinking of, something holy, something that is good. So that threw me off. Like, I didn't see as the light representing the demon, even though the film made it seem that way. And it kind of seemed, I don't want to say it was cheesy, it was just ineffective, because when they showed this light at school, when the son was like making his way through the hallway,
it was like a pulse,
it felt very,
right? Like, it's not this like little light that floats. It's like a pulsing light that goes. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so I just wish they would have represented this form of the demon in a different manner. They already sort of did, like in the form of the daughter Charlie with her clicking noise. So maybe they could have gone in that route, just kept it to like an audio cue, or just kept it to that particular cue, because whenever you heard that clicking noise that Charlie made, it made you like tense, or at least it made me like feel like I need to pay attention now because I'm hearing this sound. But yeah, definitely I didn't feel like the light source was justified how demonic or how evil this thing that's trying to make its way into this world really is.
Yeah, the same. I feel the same way. First of all, he's the king, or one of the kings of hell, right? Beneath Satan. For a king of hell, in my mind, I would, first of all, I think of hell as fire, blood. I don't think of a pulsing white light when I think of hell. So, I agree with you. They could have done it better, and especially like you said, the cue with the clicks. I would have so been on board with that if I just heard the clicks, because every time you heard the click, it was like, hey, like somebody like calling your attention. Hey, pay attention. Something's gonna happen. Now I'm going to talk about a scene that I didn't like. I'm going to talk about the ending. And everybody, who hasn't seen it, when you go see it, pay attention and see how you react to it. Because especially when I went to go see it, people in the audience were just giggling and laughing. People even made jokes of like, look, it's Spider-Man. Okay, for people who are still in the podcast and want to know what's happening. Well, at the end, this is when the mother gets possessed and she's chasing the son around the house, but she's doing it in a manner that she's floating in the air, and then she's clinging to the corners of the room as the son is walking around the house and trying to find out, where his parents are. Because this time I think he was knocked out. He was asleep. The mother was with the father downstairs as they're burning a book that was significant. They think they're going to burn the book and the mother's going to catch on fire, and that she's going to sacrifice herself for her kids. But when she throws the book in the fire, the father kind of catches on fire, and he's the one who's going to die. The mother gets possessed, tries to find the kid, tries to either capture him, kill him, or whatever she needs to do. But in the sense they did it was really, to me, was a comical effect. The mother's kind of like floating, and it feels like one of those plays you see in school when like it's Peter Pan hanging from a wire and he's acting like he's flying, and at the same time it looks like he's swimming. It's that same cheesy feel that I got. The mother's swimming through the air. Then she's clinging on the wall. This whole concept of her like trying to hide from the kid. Eventually the kid sees her. He starts running, ends up at the attic. jumps out the window, falls to the ground. You think he's dead. He stands up. You hear a clicking sound. Now we finally know that he's not him anymore. He is dead. The body got repossessed, because you do see the light which is supposedly, now we know it's Paimon, who's the demon, and he goes inside the body. So the kid gets up, which is now the demon. He sees the treehouse. The lights are on in the treehouse. Then you see again the mother, headless mother, because in the attic she started cutting her head off. Now you see the floating dead mother, still floating, still flying, go into the treehouse. As she's going into the treehouse, she's still, even though she's floating, she's using the ladder to climb. And I was like, oh my God, either stick to one thing, don't just keep changing things. People in the audience were laughing, and I mean like loudly. They were just laughing and saying, oh my God, what's this? The kid walks towards the treehouse, and then we see what I think kind of disturbed Touly. We see naked people in the forest. And it wasn't really like Touly says, like, it wasn't even, if you're and I'm going to quote Touly here, like, if you're a demon and you're a king of hell and you're coming to this world and you wake up and you see old white men greeting you naked, you're going to be like, what the hell? So I think this is the perfect way to sum this up. It was all these naked bodies, when you would have expected basically for the king of hell to be welcomed in by, blonde, beautiful women, and he's coming into this world and gonna wreak havoc. It's only old dudes. Like, really? Like, is this what he signed up for? Well, I mean, I don't know how he swings, but normally, like, demons are all about the hot, pretty girls that we know from old horror movies. So he goes into this treehouse. We see the body of the grandmother who's been dead, kneeling without a head. We see the mother, also her body kneeling without a head. And we see everybody else who are members of the cult around there, kneeling naked with their head bowed to him. There's a sculpture, and to me it looked like it was this sculpture that was either made by the cult to symbolize the king, but on top it was Charlie, the sister's head, decapitated on there with a crown. One of the members gets up, grabs the crown from this sculpture, and puts it on the kid and says, we welcome you into this world. Here's the other thing that was really bad for me. The member of the occult takes it upon herself to tell the demon, who has been, I'm assuming that he's in on this whole thing, gives him a rundown. Oh, we corrected your body. You were in a female body. Now we corrected it. You're in a male body. So now you basically, it's like, look, I know the audience is stupid, but we're going to try to like force feed you this, give you the summary. And I felt like it was like a really bad way of doing it. Like, I felt that the movie was telling me like, you're stupid enough not to follow the story. So here it is. And I'm like, don't treat me like I'm stupid. You're trying to do this whole like mother flying through the air and you think I'm stupid? Like, no. So to me, that was like the funniest scene and the worst scene that I could have done without. I could have done better if I would have seen the aftermath of the king when he came into the world, see what kind of powers he had. But the look on the kid seemed like he wasn't even aware where he was at. And I'm like, is this how we're going to play it? We're going to have a demon come from hell on into our world and act like he's clueless, and he needs the help of this old lady to explain to him what's going on. So I was kind of upset at this scene for, I don't know if it's a good reason. What do you think, Touly?
No, I agree. Sometimes this film does rely too much on exposition to try to explain things right then and there, instead of just, like how we always talked about, ease us into things. When something like a movie or a TV series or whatever, when it relies on this technique, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, that you do have to rely on it sometimes, but when it's relied too heavily on to tell the audience the key stuff or to explain why this is the way it is, and it's a big revelation, then that's kind of where I kind of draw the line too, because if the story that you're telling is being done in such a way through just the acting or the screenshots, again, the music, the mood, stuff like that, then you don't necessarily need to rely too much on exposition. But to me, that's also one of the falters that I kind of critique the film on, is that it does rely a little too much on exposition. I mean, it's not a lot, but given how the movie started, I felt like it didn't need to go that way. And when it started to venture in that route, that's when I kind of started to devalue how great this film is. Like, great start, despite it taking its time to develop the family relationship. Despite that, I felt like it did a great job of setting things in motion. But then the reward or the follow through, though, I didn't feel like it kind of matched the level of intensity that was at the beginning of the movie. And so that's why, even though I say that it is one of the better horror flicks I've seen in a long time, it does have its problems too.
Yeah, one of the other little problems, well, not a big problem, but I think it was an acting thing for me, was when the son was crying. It felt really hilarious to me. It was awkward the way he was crying in some of the scenes.
Are you talking about when he was hugging the dad?
Yes, that, and then also when he was freaked out and calling out for his mom, like when the mother was like banging on the ceiling, and he was like, "Mommy," and I was like,
"Oh yeah,
those
yeah." Okay.
times that he was crying, I'm like, really? Like, this is how you cry? I'm like, if I was a director, I would like, can we do that again, but in a different way? Can you cry differently? Because I mean, to me, it just felt like really like I wanted to like laugh, but I don't know if the actor, that's how he cries. Everybody cries differently, but to me, when it's in a movie, you want to probably keep it generic. So to me, that was kind of funny.
Yeah, like it didn't fit the mood.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah, it kind of broke. It broke the character there, and I'm like, oh, that's why. Like, I guess in my viewing, people were just giggling at little things, and it was kind of funny. The other thing I really want to talk about is that I felt that it was a good thing, but also a bad thing they didn't explain was there was words written in Charlie's room. One of the words, I think it was Satoni, and there was another one called Pandelic or something like that. We just caught them, and even the mother caught it, and she tried to put it in her little miniatures. I really didn't know what these words were. I came home and I researched them. It's supposedly they're common words in rituals and ceremonies, I guess, for cults. The other thing is that there's a lot of symbolism in there. They actually talk about symbols and this and that. And also when the mother's going through the books, you see all these references to the rituals. I would have liked it if they would have paid a little more attention to them. I think you talked about this. They would talk about it or linger a little more, like in her discovering them early on in the movie. And then saying, hey, wait, at the end of the movie, I've seen this before, and go back. What we saw was she never opened the boxes, and then at the end she goes like, wait, and she goes back to her mother's belongings, and that's when she sees it. So in a sense, like, people would see like, oh, she saw it off screen, but then I don't believe that, because if you're watching a movie, everything you're seeing, you're from the third person view, and you're there with the characters at all times. So everything we're seeing in the movie, you can't just say, oh, she did it off screen. No, you have to show it so we believe you. You know, it's like if you're a director, you would do it the correct way. I think the whole thing about this movie that kind of like it's gonna minus a point or two is the pacing, the way they structure the timeline. It could if it was my movie, I would have taken less time at the beginning and put it at the ending to not force feed you the whole synopsis of the movie at the last minute, but just basically extend it more. Include more of the rituals of the cult, of what their purpose is. And if you could have added a little bit more of a fire burning of the house at the end, I think that would have been more of a big impact as them leaving the house or something. In a sense, that's what I would have done. But like you said, this is one of the best recent horror movies that I've seen. So I kind of still give it you should go watch this movie rating. So I guess with that, we are going to wrap this up. Touly, what grade did you give this movie?
I would give it a 7. Again, I like a lot of the cinematography, the audio cues, the acting. A lot of stuff about this film was done right. And I know by saying right is very subjective, but it was right from my perspective in terms of judging how good a horror flick is. Again, it was just a little too much on the exposition side for me for how great the movie started out, and a little too much time spent on building the characters and with the cheesy or amusing way that the ending was shot. But everything else in terms of trying to build the core elements of what a horror film should be and how an audience should react to these tense moments, those to me were spot on. So yeah, I would give it a solid 7.
I totally agree with you. I think everything you said is what I would have said. So my grade is also going to be the same, 7 out of 10. It's a decent movie you want to go see. It's one of the kind of better horror movies of lately. But yeah, I mean, that is one of our favorite ones. I wouldn't go that far as to put it on my favorite list. So that wraps up our review for Hereditary. Join us next time when we review Incredibles 2. And social media is down in the description, so hit us up if you have any questions. And remember, keep watching movies.